personal one. And Coach Doeren, we'll start with you and work our way back. You all will get the same question, just to start. Take us back to your childhood. Remind us, where were you living? Were you watching favorite football teams on TV? Were you playing football in the backyard? And just tell us how those early times led you to first fall in love with football.
Yeah, grew up in Kansas City, and so was a perennial Kansas City Chiefs fan. At that time, we were not what we are today. Pretty bad at that time. So there was a linebacker, though, that's actually an App State grad, Dino Hackett, who had the biggest neck roll in the world. And at that time, that was pretty cool. So all of us that played football were running around with extra pads and big neck rolls, trying to be like Dino Hackett from the Kansas City Chiefs. And yeah, I mean, that was basically it.
Cool. Coach Diaz.
I grew up in Miami, Florida, but I was raised in the Orange Bowl. So as a kid, the 80s in Miami was football-wise, it was a great time. The Dolphins went to the Super Bowl twice in '82 and '84. As an 11-year-old, I was watching the most watched Monday football game in person when the undefeated Bears came out of the Orange Bowl and lost to Dan Marino and the Dolphins, and then the Miami Hurricanes won in '83, '87, '89, '91, which was the year I graduated high school. So it was a good time to be a kid growing up in Miami for football.
Coach Belichick.
Yeah, after 3 years in Chapel Hill, my dad went to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. Followed my dad around with those teams, especially the Lena Staubach teams, and just was always on around Navy football. A lot of good players, so I turned my attention to coaching.
Coach Oliver, go ahead.
Growing up, my father was a high school football coach, and I loved to be around, and I was a walkway. So every time they kicked extra points, I had to go behind the stadium and shag the balls. I'm from the Tidewater, so Hampton was playing Bethel in high school and out in the projects, and I'm out there by myself, shagging balls, and all these little kids out there trying to get the balls. So for me to do that with my life on the line, I was
Hey, for those who don't know, Tidewater and South Florida are two of the most famous high school football parts of our entire country. Coach Baker.
Yeah, was born and raised in West Texas, and so being from Texas, football is a way of life down there, and it's true. So where I'm from, Friday Night Lights, that's real. And so for us growing up, wanting to play for your high school football team was like playing for the Dallas Cowboys. And as a kid, for me, it's changed kind of opposite. Coach Doeren, when I was a kid, the Dallas Cowboys were winning Super Bowls. We're a long way from that now, but that growing up in West Texas and watching Trei and the Smith, those guys growing up is how it started.
And starting with Coach Baker, how does this new NCAA structure affect your school or even your job as a football coach?
Yeah, I think you'll probably hear the same thing from each coach. It still raises a lot of questions that we got to find answers to. But for us at East Carolina, it'll affect us differently than other people at the table. But for us, it sets us up. Our administration, our board of trustees has set us up to compete at a high level in the American Conference. And for us, to be able to do that, to be able to support our student athletes with it, I think it's a great thing. Now, obviously, like anything that's happened over the last 4 or 5 years in college athletics, we got to find the parameters to it. We got to find the ways to regulate it. But as far as being able to, have the intentions to help our student athletes, to me, it set us up. And like I said, our university has put us in a great spot to compete at a high level.
Coach Oliver, you always look at me funny when I ask these questions because I know you're living in a slightly different world than some of the others next to you. I'm just quoting you.
Well, now, obviously, not every conference is getting, 20, each school's getting $20-some million, whatever you're talking about. I think it's a place for it. Obviously, we're in a little different tax bracket, but I think it's laugh a little hard over here. But no, I think it's a place for us, and we're gonna help our young men get home during holidays and things of that nature, and with their nutritional needs. But as far as the Bentleys and the Maseratis and all that stuff, you see these guys, it's crazy. We haven't gotten there yet.
Coach Belichick.
Yeah, it's similar to the NFL model, but with way less money. You're looking at maybe $300 million for 50-some players in the NFL compared to, say, $15-20 million for 100 players in college football. So the money's quite different, but the model is similar.
Coach Diaz?
Yeah, I think it's different, right? We've had so much change in our sport, but I think it reinforces the things that never change. You still need to be a relationship-based organization. You want your recruiting to be relationship-based. You know, we're fortunate due to the parents who drop their kids off at Duke University want their kids to graduate from Duke. And so now really the name of the game is retention. You know, football used to be about acquisition and development, but now you've got to retain them. You've got to keep them because they can be free agents basically right now twice a year. We're hoping to get that to once a year. So we say in our building, retention is a daily chore. You got to be the same people every day to make the relationships last. To keep them, which is no different than any of you do in your business, your line of work, to keep your employees happy.
Coach Doeren?
Yeah, you know, it's probably the last 3 or 4 years, been doing this 31 years in college now, seen more change than I did in the previous 28 of my career. And when the NIL first started, it was a mess. And so I think we're all happy that the revenue share is now on campus. We were out fundraising, you know, Manny and I, when NIL started, like it was 50% of our job. I mean, it was crazy. And so I now know that there's guaranteed rev share dollars that we don't have to go out and do that with. And I felt sorry for the donors, a lot of them are in here. I mean, it was donor fatigue for many of you. And thank everyone in here that's done that, because it's important. It's been great to see what some of our student athletes have been able to do for their families. And I mean, life-changing for some of them who's, you know, rent was up and they couldn't pay their rent, things like that, and getting their families to come to games. It's been really good. And so, you know, for the ADs that we work for, the chancellors, presidents that we work for, to know that that revenue now is coming in through guaranteed streams, I think has been a very positive thing. I would say, you know, we all deal with the negative sides of it, and, you know, hopefully they'll be able to get their arms around, you know, making this thing what it's supposed to be. The NCAA was created to create a level playing field for college sports, and it's been the opposite the last 4 years. You know, it's been who can pay the most to create a football team. You know, as you saw with last year's national champion, supposedly was paying over $20 million for their roster. And so we need to get back to where coaching and development and relationships is still the major focus behind what we do, and not just how much we can, you know, come up with to get somebody on our team.
When you knew your playing days were over, and what combination of people or inspirations, mentors, or just details made you initially know that coaching football was going to be a part of your future?
Yeah, my mom was a school teacher growing up. Dad's a family business owner and farmer there in Texas. And so, but my dad was always our Little League coach growing up. And so I just remember growing up, all my friends, to this day probably, they still call my dad coach. And he's never been a high school coach or a college coach. And so I knew early on that I wanted to. Then when I finished playing at Abilene Christian in 2013, just the impact that my college coaches, Chris Thompson and Ken Collins, had on me, it was something I knew I wanted to get into. I thought forever I'd always be a Texas high school football coach. They convinced me to be a grad assistant, and 11 years later, here we sit.
Go ahead, Coach Howard.
Yeah, right before I graduated, right before our pro day, I got hurt. And I didn't want to be that 30-year-old guy still trying to make it to the NFL. And luckily I got a call from a former coach, and he asked me to come to Delaware State to be their defensive back coach. So I was 22 years old, full-time defensive back coach, and I thought I was rich making $27,000.
Coach Belichick.
Yeah, I tried to get into college football after college, applied to 125 different schools for a graduate assistant position, but wasn't able to make that work out. So I went to work for the Baltimore Colts, $25 a week, that's what I thought it was worth. And then that's worked out okay.
I don't want to cut you off, Coach. Coach Diaz, assuming Coach Belichick was done, I'm not sure.
pretty self-aware growing up, even in high school while I was playing. I kind of knew that that was going to come to an end. So I pivoted. I said, what's the next best thing to playing? I didn't know how you became a coach, so I decided that media would be it. So went to college, sports editor of the paper, and a TV show, the whole deal. I could work at ESPN. That's what I'm gonna do. I have your job, David.
You're good at it.
I never told you this, but January '97, we're in New Orleans, the Super Bowl. Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers are playing the upstart New England Patriots, coached by another Bill, Parcells. And I went into an interview with him. I had no duties. I was just sitting in the back of the room and watching that guy talk for 45 minutes. I said, I need to do that. And been doing that ever since.
On the pre-med track in college, thought I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon, and my dream team, the Kansas City Chiefs doctor, ended up doing knee surgery on me right before my senior season. And I asked him if I could shadow him through the process, kind of like an internship. And so for 2 weeks prior to the surgery and 2 weeks after, this is how dumb I am. I got an epidural so I could stay awake and watch my own knee surgery. So I actually did that. And had both of my knees done the same day. Meniscus surgery on both knees. I watched the whole thing. And I thought that was pretty dang cool. So I wasn't sick that way, I guess. But, when it ended, John Brown, who's the team doc for the Chiefs, followed him around. He was gracious to me. And he was running from meeting to meeting. He had a 3-hour wait to get in and see him. He couldn't spend time with his patients. And so I met with him and just said, Doc, I love football. I love helping people. I'm pretty good at science. And this is what I wanted to do. It doesn't seem like you have any relationships with your patients anymore. And he said, I can. And so I left there pretty disheartened. Went home, met with my high school counselor, who was a mentor of mine. And he said, just take a gap year. You don't have to go to med school right away. Come home. We'll pay you a couple bucks to help coach the football team. And so I did that and fell in love with coaching and was very fortunate after a year of high school coaching. My college coach hired me to be a GA, and at that time, it was pretty cool. It was me as a GA, and Chris Ash, who's the D coordinator for Notre Dame, was the other GA on defense. Brendan Daly coached for Coach Belichick. He's the linebacker coach for the Chiefs now. Charlie Partridge, who's the D-line coach for the Colts. We were the 4 GAs at Drake, and we all played together. And so my head coach got all 4 of us into the profession, and it's turned out really well. And I will say, sidebar, my mom wanted to beat the living, you know what, out of me. When I told her I'm not going to med school, I'm going to be a high school football coach. She's wised up now, but tough week at the house.
You're one of those who has a guy who started some last year, same with Coach Baker, and some variety in between. Some transfer portal guys are going to be starting in some schools. Give us a little more detail about your projected starter, and then just maybe a sentence about a backup or two.
Yeah, it's nice to have a returning starter, I'll say that, to lead off. It's been 3 years. I was fortunate early on, had Jacoby Brissett for 3 years, and then Ryan Finley for 3 years, Devin Leary for multiple years, and then I've been in the transfer portal world here for 3 years. And so CJ Bailey returns as our starting quarterback. CJ was thrust in to being a starter as a true freshman mid-year last year and has grown a lot. He looks great. He's put on 30 pounds since we got him on campus 18 months ago. And he's, one of the best, just emotional and spiritual type guys. When he walks in the ring, you just smile. He's got great enthusiasm for football, for his teammates, for leadership. And so going into an offseason with a returning starter as a head coach is a nice feeling, especially when you like who that returning starter is. And behind him, we love the guys that we have. Lex Thomas, who's the third Thomas son that we've had now. When Drake Thomas is with the Seahawks and Thayer is with the Vikings. Lex is our backup, and we signed a young man last year that came in early, Will Wilson, that we're really excited about as well.
Coach Diaz.
We win 9 games. We set a school record for touchdown passes. We felt we were successful. We didn't think we were excellent. So we had our eye on the board to see if we could improve ourselves. And Derry Mensa, who was a first-year starter as a redshirt freshman at Tulane last year, threw about 2,800 yards. But beyond that, 2 things that really stood out. One, on the field, he just added a different element. His ability to manipulate pass rush with his feet, keep his eyes down the field, scramble the run, scramble the throw, make him defend 2 plays on defense, which is defensive guys, we know what a stress that is. But there's a very distinct culture in the Duke locker room. Our university attracts a specific type of young man, and we felt like Darian, getting to know him, and it's speed dating in the portal now, but getting to know Darian, he was an outstanding fit for our guys and our culture, and he wanted to stay at a high-entry school. Thankfully, he chose us, and since he's been on our campus, he's proven not just from the football standpoint to be what we thought he was, but again, our players love him, and as everybody knows, if the team will fight for the quarterback, then you got a chance. And so we think we've got a chance with him. Behind him, we have Henry Beelan. We're very fortunate. He started in the bowl game through a couple touchdown passes against Ole Miss. Has started some games in the past. And then Dan Mahan, who we signed, we think he's got a really bright future. Came in as a mid-year this spring and performed very well for just getting dropped off from the school bus.
Quick reminder to everybody, right now, at least the rules allow 2 transfer portal windows. So Darian Mensah of Tulane arrived prior to spring practice at Duke, whereas Gio Lopez at Carolina, as we turn to Coach Belichick, arrived in the late window, which means he was not there for spring practice, and that adds a different dynamic. Coach Belichick.
Yeah, this will be short. Gio wasn't there for spring practice. Max missed spring practice, still recovering from his leg injury. And then we have 2 freshmen, of course, haven't played. So we'll see how it goes.
Coach, you brought Gio Lopez to media day yesterday. You can't give us a little more about him? Like, what attracted you to him? Come on, man.
Yeah, no, he did it. Yeah, Gio, had a great year at USA, and obviously we're excited to have him. He just doesn't play for us.
Coach Oliver.
I started as Walker Harris right here, Heritage High School. Phenomenal young man. He sat behind a 2-time Player of the Year, Davis Richard. And nowadays, you don't very rarely see that. Guys being patient and wanting to grow and learn. So he's going to start again this year. And then behind him, we have Joshua Jones out of Westover High School in Fayetteville. And then Javion Martin out of Sumter, South Carolina. And our 2 and 3, both those guys got significant amount of reps last year. And then we had our 2 still very short.
Coach Baker, kind of like Coach Doeren, you had a quarterback mid-season change, but you have him back.
Yeah, really excited about Caden Hauser. He came in last year from Michigan State, originally from St. John Bosco in California. This time last year was in a quarterback competition, did not win the job, and just his resiliency, his ability to just be a great teammate, the first 5 or 6 games as the backup. Took over for us midway through the season. He's a big reason why we had the success we had late in the year. Led us to a 5-1 record, threw for over 2,000 yards, almost 20 touchdowns in those 6 games. And so I'm really pleased with him, more so just the jump that he's made from year 1 to year 2. Obviously knowing our system, but also just the leader that he is. He's exactly what you want in that position. Tough, great leader, great teammate. Behind him, we had 2 freshmen and a redshirt sophomore, Raheem Jeter from Spartanburg, South Carolina, that had a combined 3 college football snaps. And so after the spring window, went and found a guy that I feel like we're really, really fortunate to get in Mike Wright. He's a guy that started at quarterback at Mississippi State in the SEC, and then Northwestern at Big Ten. So he'll be our backup this upcoming season. But really talented, more impressive young man that will be a great asset going into the season.
I'm not going to get anybody in trouble, but give us an example of a "you've got to be kidding me" story, where either a player asks for something that's outrageous, or you see something that symbolizes the dramatically changed nature of college football, even in the last 5 years, because of what they're asking for compared to what their value is. Let's start at the end with Coach Doeren and come back.
You got to get some better questions.
The goal is to help people have some fun and laugh a little bit. I mean, you can tell us 9 fun stories, but the "you got to be kidding me" stories are what you guys talk about when the cameras aren't on, and that's why these people pay to be here.
Yeah, I'm going to say you got to be kidding me with that question. I'll just give you an example. So this was last year. We had a young man good kid, and he was earning, some NIL money, and at the end of the year, the biggest problem we face is the agents. The agents call these young men and their families, and they promise them whatever amount of money to leave and go to another school. And sometimes it's hard to get it out of them, and so I knew what he was making. And I said, well, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, I got a school that's going to pay me 3 times that. And I just said, well, where is it? He told me. And I said, you need to take it. Because I'm not paying you that. Back up for us. And he paid 3 times the amount of money to go to this other school, and we play him. So we'll see how it turns out. But, it's just crazy, some of the numbers that get thrown around. And you never know, for them or for us, if some of this information is even real. Because some of these agents lie to these kids left and right.
See, I told you the behind-the-scenes stuff was interesting. Coach Diaz.
Yeah, the way I'll answer that is, I was head coach for 3 years in Miami, then 2 years went to Penn State as defensive coordinator, and then now coming back. The 24 months I was not head coach, it's like the job changed in that time frame. When I was head coach in Miami, there would be kids from South Florida who their lifelong dream was to be a Miami Hurricane. They would commit to us. And then a few months later, they would call us in tears. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, they were offered 25,000 rabbits. Right? Let's say they loved rabbits, and someone offered them 25,000 rabbits. And at Miami, we had no rabbits to offer. We couldn't offer any rabbits. And the kid, he loved Miami, but his family, they really needed and loved those rabbits. So Stone did not have rabbits, and we watched that kid become a first-round draft choice in a school, and let's say the southern part of the country, that offered him 25,000 rabbits. Well, when I came back to being a head coach, that same kid was now demanding 250,000 rabbits. The amount of rabbits went 10x. A lot of rabbits, right? And that's why you've been hearing all the news about what's going to be like. What's been going on, which Dave mentioned, what's been happening in the last 4 years has not been sustainable because there's no one in this room whose value suddenly just went up 10x. And that's really what happened. So we're hoping for some guidelines. We're hoping that this house settlement doesn't be perfect, but it will be better. Because ultimately, as Dave said, guess who we were asking for rabbits? The people in this room. You know what I mean? You only feel like giving so many rabbits until you damn run out of rabbits. You know what I mean? So, anyway.
Hey, there's no other event of any kind where you're giving football rabbit answers like that one. Coach Belichick.
Yeah, well, since I haven't been in this arena, Dave, like you and Manny have, I don't really have much comment on that question. Rabbits, it's good.
But Coach, you have a GM,
I'll
right?
go to the other end of the spectrum. When I was in New England, there was a wrestler that was competing for the Olympics, and he lost to Brock Lesnar, and so he was only one heavyweight that could go. So he got a call and said, hey, this guy wants to play football. After his wrestling career, was ended, his college wrestling career. And I said, well, has he ever played football before? He said, no. Never played football. Didn't play in junior high school, didn't play in high school, didn't play in college. They wanted to try out. All right. So we bring him in, and he spent the first year on the practice squad, and then he started for 7 years. 3 Super Bowls at New England. Steve Neal never played football, and started playing football at 24 years old. Started for 7 years. It's a pretty incredible story. So when we think about the guys that want all the rabbits, there's some guys that, can start at the bottom and work their way up, and, just through a lot of hard work, dedication, perseverance, and just how to compete the guy ahead of them. There's a place for that too. So I think that's still present in football. And then there's the other end of the spectrum.
Coach Oliver, I know you say you're in a different tax bracket, but young people, it's not always about money. It could be about playing time. It could be about other variables. What's your, you gotta be kidding me, story?
Well, it's on what these guys do, okay? We probably play Howard University on Friday night. In pregame, and I look up and I see, I see Virginia Tech staff member on our sidelines. I'm like, what's the doing on the sidelines? oh, well, he's here to go see Bulldog because he and Bulldog got a relationship. And first of all, Bulldog's not that nice of a dude anyway. So I already know that's the first line. But Virginia Tech was actually on my sideline recruiting my running back. So the thing about him getting up, he went to UVA, he got $400,000. So he's starting at UVA now, and I hope they kick Virginia Tech play.
I told you you'd get good answers to this question. They might not all like it, but those are good stories. Go ahead, Coach Baker.
Yeah, I think hopefully, like we said, the House settlement brings some stability, logic, because that to me has been what's lacking the last 3 or 4 years. I'll use a story from previous university. I was at Ole Miss for 3 years, and we had a player on our team, an offensive player, is actually in my position room, in the tight end room, and the year before he finished with maybe 5 or 6 catches, maybe 80 yards, was a role guy. But he was a developmental guy I felt really good about. And so then the next spring, had an unbelievable spring, just really took a step forward. And then at the end of spring ball, walked in and said, we'll stick with the rabbits. Now, he said he's making 30,000 rabbits. Now he wants to make 250,000 rabbits. And so, I just remember sitting in that room and Coach Kiffin, obviously having an NFL background, like looking at the kid, trying to get him to understand like what you're asking for. You haven't produced 1 second in a real actual football game, but yet you think, practicing well earns you a new contract. And, trying to explain to these guys, like, if you go into an NFL GM's office and ask for this, they'll laugh in your face. And so, like I said, hopefully there's some logic and some stability that comes from it, but those are the conversations that, everybody at this table has been having the last 3 or 4 years.
We've got you, and in your case with Coach Harrell, how do you summarize those key elements that are going to be the difference in your eyes between getting where you want to go or falling short of that?
Yeah, so really, really excited. Obviously, Coach Harrell going into his first full year as a head football coach at East Carolina, and just, from the second he took over last year, you could tell a difference in our team, just the way they play, the way they carry themselves. And so it's been awesome for the last 7, 8 months to watch him, really put his fingerprints on our program. Going into our season, really excited, obviously, going into year 2 of our offensive system, being able to retain some key players like Caden, like some of our receivers, but also, adding some pieces, defensively running Josh Aldridge, who comes to us from Auburn as our defense coordinator. So really excited about both sides of the ball. We got a challenging schedule. Obviously opening up here in Raleigh versus NC State, go on the road to Coastal Carolina, and then have BYU, who will probably be a top 10 team, coming to Dowdy Ficklen Stadium in Greenville. And then opening conference play, really appreciate the American Conference. They give us BYU on a Saturday and then turn around and play Army, the defending conference champs, on a Thursday night. So that'll be awesome. Glad I'm not a defensive coach that week. And then turn around after a bye week and play Tulane. So you pair our non-conference schedule with, with opening with the 2 teams that played in our conference championship a year ago. It presents a big task and a challenge for us, but we're excited. We've got a young team, but a talented team, and it's just like anybody else in the country. How fast can you add your new guys to the mix? How fast can you gel that team and get going in the right direction? So it's a challenge, but we're excited for it.
Coach Oliver.
Can you please repeat?
Yeah, how do you summarize just the key elements that you believe, looking at your team right now, will likely make the difference between getting where you want to go and falling short of that?
No question. Our motto is culture over scheme. And it's about how you walk, how you talk, how you move, what type of teammate you are. That's more important than the scheme when we run inside zone, outside zone, go 3-step, go the ball downfield. So continuity is a big thing. It's a huge thing. We've got to be able to play for 60 minutes. And we had a really good season last year, had 1 bad half, and it cost the championship. Last year, great season, 1 bad quarter. So consistency, and it's all about the culture.
Coach Belichick.
Well, we have 70 new players on our team from last year's team, so a lot of new faces. We'll see how it all comes together. Excited to start the year against TCU. on Labor Day. We got a lot of work to do between now and then, and we'll just have to see how it all comes together, but just one day at a time. And it's probably better tomorrow than we were yesterday. Just grind it out, see where we're at.
Quick reminder, the new rules allow for 105 players on a football roster. That's brand new this year. So if you have 70 new players, as Coach Belichick just said, that's literally 2/3 of your roster, which is pretty high percentage historically. Coach Diaz.
I was told there'd be no math here today.
I did it for you.
I've coached in the Big Ten and the SEC, and to me, what separates the SEC from those leagues are, when I was at Penn State, there were 3 teams that were just miles better than everybody else we played against. Same thing SEC, there's a sort of group at the top that sort of dominate our league. The disparity in talent is so much less. Everybody's pretty much playing with a very similar roster. All that to say, it comes down to close games. I think over half of our games last year were decided by a touchdown or less. So whether you end up at the top of the pack or the bottom of the pack, probably is going to come down to a couple of drives during the course of the game. If you play 32 quarters in 8 games, 2 or 3 bad quarters might be the difference between whether you're playing in Charlotte in the year or going to Shreveport for a bowl game or not going to a bowl game at all. So you have to win the fine margins. You have to stay healthy, you have to protect the ball, things that obviously everybody in here knows. But it's going to come down to a kick, a 4th down stop, a red zone score. That's just how this league is won and lost every year.
As we give Coach Doeren the last word, so to speak, a quick reminder, a couple of these guys have really hard 1 p.m. commitments. So when we wrap up, whoever got those winning helmets, come on up. Let's keep these guys' day rolling because we want you to get that signed helmet and, of course, the quick photo. Coach Doeren, same question to you as you get the last word.
Yeah, excited to get back on the grass with our players, and definitely a team and the staff. It has a lot to prove. We look forward to competing with all the teams that we play and have a great schedule. Have some midweek games, which is always unique for the players, but we get to play the usuals in the state, but then get to go to Notre Dame, go to Miami, Florida State at home. So it's a great schedule. We're looking forward to it. I think, we returned some guys from last year's team. We felt like we left a lot of meat on the bone. I think Manny's right on. We played in 9 one-possession games a year ago, and we lost 5 in the last 60 seconds. So it was a team that, was on the verge of something great, ended up with something average. And so, to take the next step, we got to be better finishers. That's really what it comes down to. We put ourselves in position to win a lot of football games and didn't get it done. And ultimately, that's getting these kids to believe they can. And football is a huge confidence game. It's a big, big thing for them. And so, look forward to kicking it off on Thursday night in Raleigh with a really good ECU football team. I know that will be a festive atmosphere.